Okay, hello all. Today we'll discuss about interfaces in SAP ABAP. So what is the interface?
without implementing the methods.
Yeah, so that interface we discussed in object-oriented programming. That is for reusability. That interface is different and this interface is different. The interfaces what we discussed in object-oriented ABAP is different. Okay, that concept is
Okay.
different. That is object-oriented programming interfaces concept where we can create interfaces that contains methods without any implementation, and we can reuse the structures of that interface methods in other classes, and we can create the implementation. That is object oriented programming concept. Here the interfaces what we are discussing is about transferring the data between one system to another system. Okay, so the interfaces what we are discussing now is about exchanging the data between different systems, sharing the data between different system, source to target. Okay, in any organization, there will be lot of systems in their landscape. For example, SAP S4 HANA ERP system, and for payroll, to run the employee payrolls, they might use non-SAP system. And for employee leave tracking, they might be using different system. For example, Ramco. Ramco is one of the leave tracking application. They might have using a different application. Similarly, in a system landscape, in any project landscape, there will be different systems. There are few SAP systems, few non-SAP systems, but at the end, all should be connected. For example, if an employee applied a leave in Ramco, where should that be reflected? In SAP, because SAP is the single point of truth. All the organization data should come to SAP ERP, right? So whatever the payroll information that is handling should be updated with the SAP S4 HANA, or this payroll system to whom payroll will be executed for employees, right? But all the employee details will be available in SAP system. So whenever a new employee joined, that information should be shared with this payroll system to run the payroll, right? But how data can be transferred from one system to another system? By using interfaces, right? So we are going to use a interface between source system and target system to transfer the data. There are different techniques available. So in most of the projects, what we use to transfer the data between one system to other system, we use the interfaces. how it will look like. We'll be having one middleware system. Which type of system? Between source systems and target systems. What kind of system it is?
Middleware system.
Middleware system.
So what is the purpose of this middleware? For example, SAP sends data in one format. For example, in the form of a file, some text file. How that should be received in the receiver end for the payroll system? Payroll system cannot understand file formats. Payroll systems cannot understand file formats. What they expect? Data in a different format. But SAP is sending the data as a file. So we use middleware systems to convert data from one format to another format. General, in general, most of the systems accepts XML format. How many of you know XML?
Yes, sir.
So most of the systems accepts XML data format, right? So what this middleware system will do? It will convert source data into target system's acceptable format. Okay? And if payroll system is sending data to SAP, then it will take payroll system data format and transform into SAP S/4HANA acceptable system format, right? So in middleware, what we use for this, like to exchange the data, what we use? Interfaces. We create the interfaces, and with the help of middleware, we exchange the data between source and target systems. For example, a purchase order is created in SAP S/4HANA. What is the transaction code to create the purchase order?
ME21.
Yes. So, for example, a user created a purchase order in SAP S/4HANA. So, there is another system which is using that purchase order data. That is non-SAP system, right? Now, what we need to do? So, let's say there is a other system that is for vendor management. Whenever there is a purchase order created in SAP S/4HANA, what should happen? That purchase order information should be shared with this system. Okay. For that, what we use? We use one interface, one specific interface, one type of interface we use to transfer data from SAP to non-SAP system. The data transfer which will handle, like, what is the system that will handle the data transfer? That is
Middleware
middleware
system.
system. So example middleware systems are SAP PI, SAP PIPO, and SAP CPI. These are the SAP middleware systems. So what is the purpose of this middleware system?
Convert the data from
Uh,
one format to another format.
Middleware systems are used to accept data from the sender and transform the data into receiver format and deliver it to receiver system. Okay, clear? That is the purpose of a middleware system, but we are not going to work anything on the middleware system now. As a ABAPer, you just need to create the interface. That's it. There will be separate middleware consultants, SAP PIPO or SAP Cloud Platform Integration. PI means process integration. PI means process integration. PO means process orchestration. SAP CPI means cloud platform integration. It is like a cloud integration tool which is using widely in these days. Okay. So as a ABAPer, what is your responsibility? Your responsibility is to create the interface in SAP. That interface can accept the data or send the data, right? That interface can accept the data, can send the data. Now we need to understand one important terminology, that is, for example, uh, if you like in the interview you say I've created lot of interfaces in my project. So what is the next question they are going to use? They are going to ask, is it a inbound interface or outbound interface? Is it a inbound interface or outbound interface? What is the inbound interface and what is the outbound interface? In SAP S/4HANA, you created a interface. What type of interface it is? Is it a outbound interface or
Outbound
inbound
interface
interface?
or inbound interface.
So outbound interface is
So
Inbound.
to,
outbound interface.
what is the purpose of outbound interface? To send the data from sender to receiver. What is the inbound interface? To receive the data. So we create inbound interfaces and outbound interfaces. When we create outbound interface, to send the data something from SAP S/4HANA to other systems, or let's say we are sending data from SAP S/4HANA to payroll system. Now the interface what we create in S/4HANA, what do we call, what type of interface it is?
Outbound.
Outbound
Outbound.
interface.
Outbound.
Outbound interface.
Interface.
So what is the receiver here?
Inbound.
Inbound, sir.
No, payroll system is the receiver, right? So SAP S/4HANA system sending some data and payroll system receiving the data. Now in the receiver end, what type of interface they need to create?
Inbound.
Inbound
Inbound.
interface, right? So for an integration scenario, to integrate any specific data, we need to create outbound interfaces in S4, SAP S/4HANA side and inbound interface in their respective third-party systems. Okay. For example, vendor management system is sending some vendor master data to SAP S/4HANA. Now, vendor management system is the sender and SAP S/4HANA is the receiver. Now, what type of interface we need to create in SAP S/4HANA?
Inbound interface.
Yeah, we need to
Inbound
create
interface.
inbound interface to receive the data, to read the data
Data.
and create the data inside SAP system. Okay, so what is inbound? Sorry, outbound. If you are talking about outbound interfaces, if you are talking about outbound interface, that will be like this. So what this outbound interface will do?
Send the data from sender
Send
to
the data.
receiver.
Send the data from sender to receiver, but how? Let's assume this is the interface. Read data from tables using specific condition and prepare final out prepare final output and send the data to receiver system. Send the data to receiver system. In receiver side, they'll have some inbound interface to accept the data and create the data in their respective database tables. If it is a outbound interface, we create that in SAP. If we create that in SAP, so in the interface logic, what we do, we read the data from different tables and prepare the final output and send that data to the receiver. Is there anything new here? Reading the data and preparing the final output. Is there anything new you need to learn here?
No, no.
No,
These
sir.
are all existing BAP statements, table like data selections and everything. Whatever you have, practice it till now. Only thing you need to know is how to create that interface with some navigations. Okay, you need to understand few navigations to create the interface, and there are different types of interfaces. There are different types of interfaces like file, proxy, idocs, BAPIs, web services. There are different types of interfaces. Technique might be different, but this data logic would be same. Okay, you can reach destination. Let's say you want to travel to some city. You can reach that destination by using different transportation options. You can reach by bike, by bus, you can reach by train, right? You can reach by aeroplane. Depends on the requirement. We are going to choose that specific interface. Okay, whether we need to send the data in the form of file, or we need to send the data in the form of web service, or we need to send the data in the form of idoc or proxy. So we are going to decide, depends on the requirement and the receiver system configurations. Okay, this is about
Okay.
outbound. What about inbound? Now what about inbound? If it is SAP ERP system is the receiver, what we do in inbound scenario? Here we are receiving data from other systems, right? In the inbound scenario, sender is going to send some data. What is our responsibility? We need to read data that is sent by sender system. we'll get the data into one kind of internal table. So we read interface data, and what is the next step? Save in SAP. Okay, we read the data from receiver, like sorry, we read the data from sender and save the data to SAP system in the SAP tables. This is inbound scenario, right? We receive the data and we create the data into different SAP tables like sales orders, purchase orders, depends on the requirement. But in outbound scenario, we select the data from SAP tables and send the data to receiver system, right? Clear?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Please understand this concept. Outbound interfaces and inbound interfaces. Scenario. What type of scenario it is? Is it an outbound scenario or inbound scenario? Outbound means we are sending data from SAP to other systems. Inbound means we are receiving data from third-party systems to SAP systems. And here we read the data and we post the data to SAP. Okay, clear? And depends on the requirement. We are going to use different interfaces like file. We prepare a file and we send that file to receiver. BAPI, BAPI function modules we use to send the data from one system to other system. We sometimes we generate the APIs for BAPIs, and proxy. Proxy is one kind of interface where you can generate the proxy, inbound proxy or outbound proxy. Outbound proxy is to send the data from SAP to other systems, and inbound proxy receive the data from other systems to SAP. Here, by using inbound proxy, we are going to receive the data, right? And iDocs, web services. Web service means we are going to generate a service in SAP where the other systems can access the specific data, not everything. We are not going to provide the complete database access to anyone. We are going to provide access to only specific data by using these interfaces. Okay, so we are going to use any one of this interface method, depends on the requirement. If the receiver supports like it depends on the receiver and sender configuration, what type of interfaces they support and what is the best approach to be used, right? Performance wise proxies proxies are proxy interfaces are faster than other interfaces like BAPI, iDoc, file. Okay, proxy interfaces are faster than rest of the interfaces. The transaction code for proxy is S proxy to generate the proxies. What is the transaction code? S
Yes, proxy.
S proxy.
Proxy.
S proxy. Okay. BAPIs is nothing but function modules. We can access that in SC37. iDocs, we have a lot of transaction codes which we use in iDoc. Again, you're not going to write any special coding here, right? Only thing is you need to understand the navigations and you need to remember few transaction codes. Okay, clear?
Okay, sir.
So BAPI, if you talk about BAPI, what is a BAPI? BAPI is a remote enabled function module. Remote enabled function module. By using BAPI, we can send or receive data from, sorry, we can send the data from SAP to other non-SAP systems. So non-SAP systems can use BAPI to read the data from SAP to non-SAP system or to create the data in SAP systems. Okay, what is a BAPI? Go to SC37. BAPI is nothing but a remote enabled function module, RFC function module. All the names of the standard BAPI function modules will starts with
Modules will
BAPI, BAPI underscore. Okay, for example, PO or SO. If you see this one, BAPI underscore PO underscore create. What is this BAPI for? To create the purchase order. You can find that in documentation, function module documentation. What is the purpose of this BAPI? Create purchase order. This method enable you to create the purchase order. What is the other way to create the purchase order? How can we create purchase order usually?
we use transaction codes.
Uh, in ME21 transaction code, you can create the purchase order. But how can we create it in the code? Like, how can we create
How can we
purchase orders
create
using a
purchase
program?
orders using a program?
By using this BAPI,
By using this
we can
BAPI.
use this, this BAPI function module to create the purchase orders. For that, what you need to do? You need to pass data to these importing parameters and tables parameters. PO header data and item level data should be in tables. This one and text, PO item text. Whatever the data we are entering in the PO, right? ME21N, you have to pass the data to these importing parameters and tables parameters to create the purchase orders. But observe the BAPI, what type of function module it is? What type of function module?
RFC
What type of
function.
function module?
RFC
RFC
function
function
module,
module.
remote
RFC.
enabled function module. But all remote enabled function modules are not BAPIs. Please remember, BAPI is a remote enabled function module, but not all RFC function modules are BAPIs. Okay, so there are some special features you need to observe. We cannot use exceptions. We cannot use exceptions in the BAPI function modules, but RFC can contains exceptions. Normal RFC function modules can contain exceptions. But what about BAPI function modules? BAPI function modules cannot have
BAPI function modules cannot have
exceptions
Exceptions.
exception
because RFCs we can call in other SAP systems, right? What is the purpose of RFCs? To access the data from one SAP system to other SAP systems. But what is BAPI? BAPI we can use to access data from non-SAP systems also. So non-SAP systems also can use BAPI function modules to read the data from SAP. But how can we handle exceptions in a program? Function module exceptions in a program. How can we handle exceptions returned by the function module in program? Forgot everything.
Forgot everything.
Use sub RC, right? SY sub RC check. The specific interface, sorry, specific exception will reflect in sub RC, right? Sub RC 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we call the function module in the program. If there is exception, if there is any exception raised inside the function module, so we can capture that exception using SY sub RC, right? If sub RC equal to 1, exception 1 raised. If sub RC 2, exception 2 raised, like that, right?
Yes, sir.
But here in BAPIs, when BAPIs are called inside non-SAP systems, non-SAP systems cannot understand exceptions. They cannot use sub RC checks to identify the exceptions. Okay, non-SAP systems cannot understand the exceptions. For that reason, what we do, we don't use exceptions in BAPI function modules. Clear? But how can we return the errors? If there is any error in the function module execution, how can we return that error? How can we return the errors in BAPI function modules? Using this one, return parameter. Using return parameter, we are going to return the errors. We are not going to raise any exceptions in BAPI function modules. Okay. How can we return errors in BAPI function modules? Using
Right.
return parameter.
Using
What is the type of
return
that return
parameter.
parameter? BAPI return. Double click on the structure. What you can find here? Type. This is message type. Observe the description. It will return yes if it is successfully executed. E if there is any error. W if there is any warning. I if there is any information message. A about, right? And the code, message code, and the message text. Message about the success or failure information. So it will return the data, right? But in exceptions in function modules, we can return the errors in the form of exceptions. Why don't we use exceptions in BAPI function modules? Because BAPIs can be used in non-SAP systems also. So non-SAP systems can also use BAPI function modules to read the SAP data. If we use exceptions in BAPIs, non-SAP systems cannot understand those exceptions. Okay. For that reason, we use return parameters to return the errors. Okay. Clear? It
Yes,
is a
sir.
very important interview question. Difference between RFC function module and BAPI. Both RFC function module and BAPI function module. Both are RFC function modules only. Right? You can create BAPI only with the help of remote enabled function module option only. You cannot create normal function module as a BAPI. All BAPI function modules are remote enabled function modules, right? But what is the difference? In BAPIs, we don't use exceptions to return the errors. Instead of exceptions, what do we use?
Return.
Return
Written.
parameter. RFCs can contain exceptions because RFCs we are going to use only within the SAP system. Okay? Non-SAP systems cannot use RFC function modules. Clear? Let's go back to our interface. Right? So this is about inbound and outbound interfaces, and these are the different types of interfaces. So what we do in case of file interface? We read the data from SAP tables, prepare the final output, and we create a file from that final internal table data. We create one file, and we populate all the data available in that final internal table, and that file will be sent to the receiver system, right? If SAP receives a file from the sender, from the non-SAP system, for example, non-SAP system is sending a file, data in the form of a file, then what SAP will do? SAP, like it will come first, it will come to the middleware. First, it will come to the middleware system. And what the middleware system will do? That will convert data into proxy, IDOC, or any web service. So what the middleware will do? Middleware will accept that file, and that file will be converted into proxy, IDOC, or any web service, and post that data into SAP. Okay? Posting data nothing but saving the data, creating the data in SAP system. Okay? Is everyone clear about interfaces?
Excellent.
So we are going to work
Yes,
on
sir.
one by one. Okay? So different types of interface techniques like files, BAPIs, proxies, IDOCs. Okay? So in the next session, I'll start creating a file interface and the rest of the interfaces. Okay? We may not be able to test with the third-party systems because we don't have any third-party system available to send or receive the data, but we can create scenarios in SAP system. Okay?